Welcome everybody. Matt and I are back. It's been a while, Matt. I mean, it's been
Yeah.
a little over a month, and in that time, I know, I mean, you and I have just been busy and both been dealing with just various things, and nothing like major, but I know you and I both had some health things. I've copied Coach Prime, I guess, had an undisclosed health issue where lost some weight, and doctors didn't even really know what happened to me, but I'm okay now, and so yeah,
I'm
and
glad, buddy.
yeah, I am too. But we're back.
Yes, we are back, and it was an unannounced hiatus, but sometimes life pops up and you got to handle it, and that's what we did. I'm glad to be back though. We got a few
Yeah,
things to talk about, and I don't know where I was yesterday. I was filling out a form yesterday somewhere, and I realized that we're almost in July,
yeah.
and it just like that.
Hmm.
And so here we go. Before you know it, we're going to be talking about training camp. I mean, we're almost like what, a month plus out from training camp.
Yeah, and I mean it's a little more than 2 weeks from now, I think, that in Dallas for Big 12 Media Day.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it's crazy. And since we last talked, the Buffs have added 5 transfers. We're going to talk about those guys, and um, you know, nobody super recently. The last one was last week, and I'm sure Buff fans have heard about these guys already. But you and I are going to talk about them, and just give our thoughts on the roster to this point. Probably some similar thoughts we've had in previously, because I don't think that they've like massively upgraded the roster with these 5 additions, but they've added depth. And so we're going to talk about that, and some early predictions are out. I've picked up a couple preview magazines, and but first thing, the other thing that's happened since we both did this podcast was Coach Prime. We've learned that had a little bit of some health issues, and undisclosed health issue where he lost a bunch of weight. Looks like he's okay. They were posting some things on Father's Day, and he looked pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Hope he's doing all right. Doesn't sound like he's back yet, though. At least not that I've
Yeah, I
seen.
don't
Maybe
think
he was
so.
back, maybe briefly. I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, I hope he's okay. I hope he's doing all right. I'm not exactly sure what's going on. Anytime you're going through that, it's definitely good to have your family around. Sounds like Bucky was down there with him for a little while, spending some time with him. So I hope he's doing well, and certainly send my best wishes.
Yeah, and his grandson was down there, and his daughters the other day. So that always, I imagine would. I'm not a grandfather yet, but I imagine that would boost the
Well,
spirits.
thank God.
Uh,
I mean, we got a couple more years first, Brian.
yeah,
Jeez.
but it boosts the spirits sometimes when your kids who have moved away come home, and so I'm sure it does. For the grandchild to come and visit. So hopefully he's feeling better. The other thing, I guess, with the Sanders family, we'll just talk about this very briefly. I don't want to get into this too much, but Shedeur Sanders apparently has a lead foot in Cleveland.
Yeah. Yeah, a couple of speeding tickets. Hey, I posted this briefly the other day. I was just kind of laughing. Look, I think you can tell um who's comfortable with driving and who's not by some of these reactions to it, right? Because look,
Yeah,
I think everybody's been there. I certainly have had many of moments where you try and push it a little bit, but there's a difference.
right.
Shador is in a position, unfortunately, where they are just waiting on him to make a mistake. Now, I don't really think twice about this. When I was 21, there was a month when I got 2 speeding tickets. The second one, we were on a road trip to Iowa. I was doing
Yeah,
80 and a 60 in a terrible rainstorm, singing along to "Always Be My Baby" by Mariah Carey, and I was like, and boop, boop, and ah. But after that, I realized, what am I doing?
yeah,
I haven't had one since, and it's been, was that 11 years? So yeah, I mean, look, you're young, you do silly things, and you gotta grow up eventually, and he'll get there. I even saw that clip. He said, "Look, I'll learn from it." Can't say it was the best decision, but at the same time, I'm not compared to a lot of things that a lot of other players are doing. That really doesn't bother me. I mean, there's just not
yeah.
much to do in Cleveland now. Doesn't excuse it. You certainly shouldn't be doing 40 over
Right.
racing at 1 a.m. So
Yeah, for sure. I actually years ago I had 2 tickets within a month of each other, and the same cop pulled me over both times.
is that
So
right?
right,
Well, well, well.
he didn't remember, but I certainly did. And we've all been there.
Yeah,
Pushing it. Let's hit the
yeah,
triple digits, and
yeah, for sure.
it's not safe. I get it, but at the same time, it's traffic violations, and people say, it's like Colin Coward saying, "I'm out on Shedeur." It's like, come on,
Ridiculous.
like just give me a break. And the story talked about he failed to show up in court for the arraignment. It's like, who
Have
shows up
you
to
ever
court for the
for a
traffic ticket?
speeding ticket? Yeah, I mean, unless you're fighting the cop, which I
Right.
mean, he's not going to do that. Nobody shows up in court.
He'll get around to pulling out his wallet and sending in the money. So, I don't worry about that. And hopefully he learns from that and slows down a little bit. So
Hey, look, I mean, that's it this summer. You just can't give any reasons off the field for them to question you, and
yeah,
I don't think this is going to reflect negatively on him. They're just probably going to be like, "All right, have you had enough yet?
yeah,
That's two. Have you
right,
had
right,
enough yet?"
right,
Because the truth is, and we make light about it, but certainly you don't want to put yourself or anyone else in danger. And
right.
as you grow up a little bit, you start to learn a little bit more, right? I mean, there was a time driving from Atlanta to Athens for or not Atlanta to Athens, from Raleigh to Manteo for a friend's wedding in North Carolina. I
Yeah,
got the Dodge Challenger rental car up to 130 at 2 a.m. It's
right,
just it happens. You
right,
know what I mean? Sometimes
right.
it happens.
Yeah.
I get it.
And when you're 20 some years old, you're dumb a lot
That's
of
what I'm
times. And
saying.
so,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's a lot of
So,
worse things you could be doing at 20. You
yeah.
know
And
what I mean?
honestly, if that's the worst thing about Shedeur, if that's the worst thing he does, cool.
Yeah.
I'm good with it.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Because that doesn't deserve any more airtime, in my opinion. Unless something else were to happen, I think that's it. He'll pay his
Unless you guys
fine,
have,
move on.
unless you guys have any great speeding stories you want to drop in the comments, and then
Right,
Brian and I are happy to look through those
right.
a little bit later.
Yeah, or just throw in the comments, what's the top speed you've ever hit in a vehicle? For me, I've been way too afraid to go beyond 105, and that was like once, and actually it was like last year, I will say, because it was it
Nice.
was it was a rental car that it felt really good, and you're on the highway, and
Sometimes you never grow up, folks.
yeah,
Look at
and
that.
there was nobody on the road, and I'm like,
Right.
you know what, I'm gonna
Let me
gun it
see. Let
and
me
hit
see.
105, and it
You
was like,
daredevil.
and I will say this, every single time I've hit 100 in my life, it's been like for a couple seconds because I just want to feel it. And then and then and then
Oh,
it's like, okay, and then you're back down to 85. So yeah. Yeah, drop in the comments what's the fastest you've ever
I like that.
the Matt's 130 apparently.
Yeah.
What's
135.
the fastest you've ever hit in a vehicle? So just drop that for some fun. And let's get on to these transfers, Matt, because five new guys. They're up to 78 scholarship players.
Wait, real
Um,
quick. Real quick. I did see somebody I had to mention on social media say, drove home 37 and a 35 with my wrist up for Shedeur. I thought that was pretty funny.
that's pretty funny.
Anyway, go
Yeah,
ahead. Sorry. Now go ahead.
pressing the limits there.
Yeah, pressing the limits. Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
They're up to 78 scholarship guys, 103 on the roster. The roster max is
Hey,
105. So if they're going to get to 85 scholarships, with Coach Prime never has,
yeah,
so I don't expect them to, they're going to have to give into some scholarships. So we'll say one thing that's new this year, Matt, and it's always been available in some of the Olympic sports, but you can now do partial scholarships in football. Did you
yeah.
know that?
Well, yeah, I did. I did. The other thing that we really haven't talked about is since we last spoke, college athletics has completely changed.
That's
That
true.
now schools can pay the players,
Yeah,
and things are becoming quite interesting. And I did
yeah,
see today that the University of Wisconsin, I believe, has filed a lawsuit against Miami claiming that they tampered. So we are about to get the decision on whether or not tampering is legal or illegal in college athletics, which I think will
yeah.
be fascinating as well. So, yes, I did know you could get partial scholarships. It's a whole new world, and I'm not even going to go into trying to explain any of this stuff because it's so complicated that the casual fan, I don't know why they'd care, number one, about the true intricacies behind NIL and the revenue sharing agreement, but also, I don't
Mhm.
know how many casual fans could really comprehend it because there's so much legal jargon and there's so many
Right.
different stipulations and regulations and guidelines and new committees being formed and it's commissions. It's a mess right now.
Yeah, I wrote a story last week that there's a law firm in Boulder that is filing. They filed an opposition to that settlement because they feel like the female athletes should get the equal share as male athletes, and so
Yeah.
there's gonna be some Title IX stuff come up, and yeah, it's crazy. I hope they get a handle on. I hope this is the start of them getting a handle on this whole
Well,
situation. I'm all
no.
for the athletes being paid, but they got to get a handle on it, and so
It's
you know,
just the beginning
yeah,
because what was it, 2 days after the revenue sharing agreement was passed, the private equity started pouring into college athletics.
Yeah,
UCLA signed a deal, Penn State signed a deal. Within short order, the bulk of your funding, in my opinion, is going to come through private equity.
yeah,
Because I don't know how these schools year in and year out are going to raise this, what, 20 plus million at least for roster alone. I think
yeah,
that's going to be a real challenge. And a lot of schools are just going to have to turn over to private equity who can, give them big influxes of cash, which we'll see what happens there. But I think it kind of makes the House revenue sharing agreement almost obsolete
yeah.
instantly because now it's okay. Well, you can distribute up to $20 million, but nobody's operating on the same playing field anymore, and that was the
Right.
whole point of this.
Yeah. Well, and I will say a couple quick things on how it impacts Colorado is that people need to understand. I mean, the last the last financial report that was out was fiscal year 24. So that's through Coach Prime's first year.
Yeah.
Uh CU needed a bump from the campus, about $8 million to balance their books. Okay. So CU Athletics was about $8 million short in that first year. And that was with all the positive stuff going on, right? I don't know what year two looks like yet. I know they were projecting around a balanced budget, but now all of a sudden you have to pay athletes 20.5 million. Your head football coach is making 5 million more than he's ever made before. So this is $25 million a year extra you're having to come up with after you've already been losing money. I mean, the CU is
Yeah.
not rolling in cash.
No.
People need to understand that all the stuff you've heard about the financial impact of Boulder and everything, that's great. That doesn't go to CU.
No.
And all the ticket sales and everything, that's great. What that does is cover the expenses. So they're not rolling in cash because of all this. So they've got to somehow come up with that money. And the one of the big impacts, Matt, is I've talked to Rick George about this for years. We've talked about some of the uh, facilities upgrades that need to happen, and that west side of the stadium has needed it forever.
So
And
bad.
this is going to put that stuff further behind because I don't know when they're ever going to afford to upgrade the west side of the stadium, which is horrible. It's the worst press box I've ever been in. Not that people care about the press box, but that side
It's
of the stadium
awful.
is terrible. And now having to pay an extra 20-25 million dollars in salaries for athletes and coaches that you didn't pay ever before. I don't know where they're ever going to come. If they had $25 million sitting there, that west side would have been done a long time ago.
Yeah, maybe the concert schedule for
Right.
2026 is going to be packed with the new turf field. I don't
Right.
know. But I will say, in
But this
fairness,
is what, real quick, this is
yeah,
why they're putting the turf field. I know a lot of people
of
don't like
course.
it, but this is why they're doing it. And they'll say college football playoff, and I get that. They're doing it because they can now have a lot more concerts, which they need in order to pay all these people.
Oh my God, they need any revenue stream that they can muster up.
Yeah.
And they're not alone. I just read, the University of Kentucky did something very interesting where they converted their entire athletic department to an LLC, and then the school loaned the athletic department $120 million. So it's we're talking about crazy money and the influx of
Yeah.
cash that will come in via private equity over the course of the next few years. It's going to create this college sports bubble, and I really think it's going to be unsustainable to a
Yeah.
certain level. It's
Hmm.
got to balance out. We can't keep going up from here. I'd be pretty surprised if we did, because you're going to see a lot of schools, and we're already seeing it, cutting Olympic sports, cutting girls sports, and
Hmm.
if they do that, they have to cut the equal number of men's sports as well. So it's going to change the shape of college athletics, and then it'll change again because, as you mentioned, there was, I wasn't aware of that lawsuit filed from those attorneys in Boulder, but everyone's going to immediately file suit against the House settlement because,
Hmm.
yet again, you're talking about a competitive marketplace with regulations and guidelines that does not exist anywhere else in our capitalistic society
Yeah.
outside of where you can put arbitrary and I don't know. I would say non-universal regulations on someone's ability to earn income. That's not how the
Yeah.
world works, which is why we keep saying, and why I keep saying, you've got to make them employees. Until you
Yeah.
couldn't collectively bargain with athletes, it's just going to keep going like this. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a mess. We probably even talked about it too much, but that is
Well,
it's a whole new world, and you got to start to
yeah.
get used to it out there, folks.
Honestly, you could do a whole show on it and probably not talk about it enough,
We could
but
probably bring some get. Maybe we should bring some. Maybe we
right.
should see if Rick wants to come on. I
I
think
will
that could
say
be
this
fun this
too,
summer.
Matt, that we're already seeing the cuts at CU a little bit. I mean, it was announced Pat Rooney had a story last
Pat's
month, I
gone.
believe.
Pat lost his job because of the revenue
No,
share.
no, no, no.
Oh,
Pat had a story last month that CU is not. I mean, they cut the positions of two track coaches, Lindsay and Casey Malone, who have been over there for
oh
20 plus
no.
years, because CU is going all in on distance. So it's not cutting a sport, but they basically told all the throwers and sprinters and everything,
Oh, the field.
eh, yeah,
Yeah, the field portion of their track
yeah.
program. I did read that. Yeah.
So you cut a lot of money without cutting a sport right there. Is you can
That's
just
such a
focus on the
shame.
distance part. And so it's a shame, but that's the residual impact of all this stuff. I don't blame CU. The bottom line is there's a lot of schools like CU
Yeah.
that don't have a lot of money that have to operate like they have a lot of money.
Yep.
It's basically like it's funny that it's college sports because it's like a lot of college kids, right? Who they get some credit cards and act like they have a lot of money, but they really don't. And I did the same thing.
Or 32-year-olds.
Or 32-year-olds, yeah. Let's not just put it on college kids. There's a lot of people that do
Right.
that. But
Right. Right.
so yeah, yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff going on with that. But let's move on to the roster stuff and talk about these five guys that have been added in the last month or so.
Five
Um,
Guys, awful, by the way. Ugh, not a fan.
you
You
don't like
said
Five
five
Guys
guys.
burgers?
No, five and their fries. What is it? A bag of grease for $35? No, thanks. Anyway, go ahead. You
Okay.
the not the restaurant. The five new transfers
You and I have never agreed on food, other than that pizza place we went to in New York City was pretty darn good.
was pretty darn good.
Yeah,
So you got to give me some
yeah.
credit there.
I love Five Guys burgers.
I
But
know.
anyway, let's start with these five guys that they added transfers. A couple of offensive linemen. One of them, Walker Anderson from UCLA, 6'5", 290, was at UCLA for a year and redshirted, a young guy. To me, that's a depth piece that you hope he can be ready in a year or so. I don't see him playing this year. And then Cooper Levis on the opposite side, a seventh year senior who gets an extra year because he started at junior college. 6'5", 315, started 9 games last year at left guard at Northwestern. Was also at USC for a couple years and Butler Community College for 3 years. So talk about the offensive lineman real quick. What do you think of those guys?
Yeah, Anderson, another really big piece. We heard from Gunnar White in the spring, and
Mhm.
we've talked about it how they wanted to upgrade their size across that front,
Yeah,
and they'd rather take a bigger guy from tackle and move him to guard versus a smaller guy at guard and move him
right,
to tackle like they had to do with Tyler Brown last year. Another really solid younger piece. It's tough for me to project on some of these younger guys because you do not know what the scenario is going to look like in a
hmm
year. And the other thing we really didn't talk about is that they're all in talks now to reduce the transfer windows from 2 to 1.
yeah,
And if that
hmm
happens, that really changes the perspective on rosters
right,
and certainly
hmm
development of younger players like a Walker Anderson, because
right,
that's a guy who maybe if he didn't play, this coming year, maybe he gets bored, frustrated, whatever, and goes somewhere else next season. Well, if they reduce that transfer portal window, it's going to change a lot of things and really limit it in some regards. However, again, another player I don't necessarily anticipate to factor in this year, but
right.
potentially down the line, a good developmental piece. And then Lovelace, interesting. How many transfers, I'd be curious, in this transfer class were JUCO guys that would otherwise have been ineligible if not for Diego Pavia? Because it's got to be a
Yeah,
good chunk of the guys that they've had through transfer. And that was one of the things that I thought of when I saw Lovelace. Look, that's another guy who's got experience, a bit of an older guy, but it's really hard to project where some of these transfer linemen are going to factor in after what we saw last year. I mean,
yeah.
Brian, we were through the majority of last year, and what of the 9 offensive line transfers they brought in last season, only one was playing, and it was Philip Houston,
Right.
who was added late, and none of us had any expectation for. Meanwhile,
I don't think any of us projected him at the start of the season to be a starter.
I mean, it was Khalil Benson, and it
Yeah.
was Tyler
hmm
Johnson, and all these
Justin
other guys,
Mayers.
Justin Mayers,
Uh-huh.
and
Justin
all.
Mayers was playing, but there was that brief time when he was benched.
Yeah, he was
That's what we're
rotating in
talking
and
about.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
rotating in and out, but even
Yeah.
near the end of the year, that was the way it was. And the point
Yeah.
here is that it's really hard to project. So
Yeah.
on paper, seems like a really smart kid. Played at Northwestern, right?
Yep. Yep.
Shout out Wildcats. And then again, maybe maybe it's are we thinking maybe at tackle? Are we thinking maybe at center? I don't know
Well, I mean,
because
he was a guard. I mean, he was a
yeah,
guard at Northwestern last year, and so we'll
I'm
see.
not
I
sure because the one thing that Coach Prime did tell us in that final presser of spring ball is he was looking for two centers, and they haven't added one center yet. Technically, have
I
they?
don't think so. No, I don't think
Okay.
so.
By the
Because
way, we should do an update on that list because that
yeah,
list has some holes in it.
what of the centers or the
No, of the wish list, the spring
oh
wish
yeah,
list.
yeah. We
Yeah,
should next week.
next week. Yeah,
By the way, I do like the idea. I'm gonna do a story on that. By the way, of how many of these guys they've added would have been out of eligibility. I don't know the number, but I
it's a lot.
know it's a good number. I mean, linebacker Martavius French was one that
Hmm.
thought he was done. So yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm looking at the offensive line group, and um, I don't know where Cooper Lovelace fits in. Obviously, he's experienced. There are so many seniors in that offensive line group right now,
Yeah.
and it's let's see, 9 seniors that all want to
Wow.
play. And one, two, three, four, five, 6 of them are transfers this year. So there's 6 seniors that have come in, you would think, for their last year wanting to be a starter. Well, it's not possible if they're all going to start. And Jordan Seaton's going to have one of the spots. So now you got 6 seniors fighting for 4 spots max. So
How many schools do you think have to are going about their offensive line like this?
I don't know. That's a good question. I can't answer that because obviously I'm only
Right.
following Colorado as closely, but
Yeah. I
and
can't.
so
I can't
far,
imagine there's too many that are trying to complete that are going for their third consecutive offensive line rebuild.
yeah. I mean, all I know is like looking at. I've been doing opponent previews. I've started rolling those out, and I've done the first 2. Um, and this is a very small sample size, obviously, but Georgia Tech and Delaware
Yeah.
are not doing that.
Yeah.
So they've got a couple pieces, plug in some holes, but not like this. I'm just very curious where this is all going to fill out. I mean, Jordan Seaton, you're going to plug in at left tackle, and then from there, I don't know where Cooper Loveless fits in. I mean, we've seen guys come in before that like, oh, he had so many starts at this place, and then he didn't
Right.
play. I mean, Khalil Benson there were a lot of high hopes for, and I know he had some injuries and stuff, but didn't play a lot last year. There were guys came in last year with some starting experience and didn't play.
Yeah.
I think Zy Chrysler's a starter.
Yeah.
Xavier Hill from Memphis was an all conference guy. I would think he's a starter. Um, at center, I mean, Zarian McGill, with Cash Cleveland moving on, I would think he's the
He's the
guy.
he's the last man standing. Do they even have another center on the roster?
Not a pure center as far as I know. I mean, I
Yeah.
think Tyler Brown can do it. There's other guys that can do it. Um, I mean, Philip Houston. I mean, is he back at starting right tackle after the injury? I wouldn't think so. I mean, a lot of people were high on Mana Taimani coming out of
Sure.
spring, but that's a guard, and Cooper Loveless is a guard. So
Yeah.
um, Larry Johnson from Tennessee, Andre Roy from Maryland. These are guys that Power Five guys that got some playing experience. So I don't know where that all fits. I get. I will say this: I think overall it's a better group.
Yes.
I think overall you've got
I
more
think.
competition, and you love that. But the trick always is finding the 5 right guys, and uh, I'll bring him a name that Buff fans don't love, but the offensive line coach here several years ago, Clayton Adams. I like the guy.
Yeah.
I thought he was a good coach, and just ended up not working out at the end for that whole staff. But I mean, I remember him used to, and this is not an uncommon thing, but when I would talk to him, he used to say it's really offensive line is like a glove, and you need those 5 people to work together. And so that's what you need is those 5 to work together. They've got a lot of pieces, they got a lot of intriguing options, but how do you find those 5?
Yeah, I'm encouraged because I think they've got what they should need in there, and they have more depth than they did last year. I'm
Yeah.
hoping that's the case. It'll all reveal itself once we hit the field, but I would say overall they've done a solid job with that group. Short of going to land, one of the premier guys that moved, which again
Mhm.
I couldn't even pick a name out of a hat and point to a guy really because I mean, I just really wasn't paying attention to that at that stage. But the point is that I think they've done just about as much as they possibly could have done with that group. And, a lot of people don't like us for pointing out the truth, but the truth is that's a position group that I'm very happy with their offseason progress. I like how they upgraded the coaching staff. I brought this up to you personally, and enough time has passed, but there was somebody that went to sit in that offensive line room who I respect very highly, who really knows the position and really knows the game before the start of last season and was in those meetings and reported back to me, I don't know about Loadholt. I don't know.
Mhm.
And so it's just one man's opinion, happens to be somebody I very much trust and respect when it comes to football and offensive line play. So I'm very hopeful that that whole staff is upgraded now. Their scheme will be better now. I felt much
Yeah.
more confident with what I heard from Gunnar White in spring ball. I really like his mentality and his approach. And having Gerard and Hegeman there, I think, is great. I really like all three of those guys. I think they have a very good group. Now it just becomes how much progress can you make with guys who've never played together in a short period of time?
Yeah, I agree with all that, and I would say this too. There's some intriguing freshmen they signed this year, and early on, people were projecting some of those guys to start. I would say with 9 seniors and 6 senior transfers you've added, and you got Jordan Seaton. If there's a freshman that starts on the offensive line at some point this year, there's a problem.
I got sent a video from, I guess, their summer conditioning of a couple of those freshman linemen. Somebody
Yeah,
said to me, "Woof," and I was
yeah,
like, "Yeah, they got a ways to
yeah,
go."
and
Yeah,
and this is not saying anything bad. I mean,
no,
I've met Chauncey Gooden, super nice kid. I think he's gonna be pretty good. Cardi
yeah,
Smith, I think is gonna be pretty good. But
got to grow into your man's
you got to
body
grow
now.
into
It's
it,
it takes some time.
and
I'm not there yet. I'll let you know if I ever get there.
there's not a lot of people like Jordan Seaton that can be ready in that
No,
first year, and most linemen take until about year 3 on campus to be really ready to play. And so that's all I'm saying about this freshman. I think they're gonna be good players.
yeah,
Um, I just think if they see the field this year,
they're in trouble.
CU's in trouble.
Yeah,
I mean, you better have your group out of Jordan Seaton and those 9 seniors.
yes, I would
and
agree with
and those
that.
2 juniors, Larry Johnson, Andre Roy. You can't count those guys out because they played. So 11 upperclassmen and Jordan Seaton. If you don't have your 5 guys out of that group,
And to be fair, they've added so many. They've added quite a few linemen since spring ball. Even that's
yeah,
probably the position they've added to the most.
right,
They've seen the freshmen. So if
right,
you've still got it in your mind that that's the route they're going, they wouldn't have added as many players at
right.
that position if they felt that way.
5 additions since the spring, 4 upperclassmen.
Yeah, that's a
So
lot.
so yeah, and then Walker Anderson being the other.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So let's move on. Linebacker Sean Myers, senior from North Alabama. Only played 2 games last year, got injured. The year before that, 8 game starter, 58 tackles. The year before that, 7 starts, 42 tackles. He might be one of those guys that we were talking about that has this year because of the JUCO thing, because he started at Hocking College. Um, I don't know what to expect out of that. I mean, that's a position group that you and I have talked about since the spring that is a red flag group. I mean, running back and linebacker were our red flag groups three
Still
months
are.
ago, and I think they still are.
Yeah.
Um, I'm glad that I'm glad there's a depth piece. This is a guy with some experience. Is he a starter? I don't know.
Well, you lost Jalen Wester, so
You lost Jalen Wester,
you're
so
even thinner than you were.
yeah. So they've got 6 inside linebackers on the roster. Martavius French, Reginald Hughes. All I gotta say is they better be ready. And Jeremiah Brown's there too, but in 2 years at CU, Jeremiah hasn't gotten on the field yet, and so I don't
Well,
want to rip.
he was out the door in the he was I mean
Right, he left
he was
briefly.
one of the rare guys that Coach Prime would have let come back.
Yeah, and obviously they like him, they want him back. He's a good kid from what it seems, by all accounts. But in 2 years, he hasn't been able to get on the field yet. Um, that's a position group I just don't know about yet.
Yeah, me neither. Myers to me strikes me as a special teams player. I
Yeah,
think they need some contributors there. A lot of their major contributors on special teams did graduate because they do play a lot of older guys on special teams
right.
or at least moved on. He did have 100 tackles, which is good. He's got some experience.
In 2 years.
in 2 years, right?
Yeah.
But still, I mean, I that's pretty solid for
Yeah.
college. I mean, unless you're a
Mhm.
full-time starter.
Right.
That being said, they didn't land a single linebacker from the Power Four level, which is another red flag. I
Hmm.
mean, 3 years in a row now.
Well,
Um,
Kylan Salter from TCU.
oh, excuse me.
Yeah.
Then I stand corrected. They did add Kylan Salter. Um, if do they add Kylan Salter without Caden Salter? I don't know, but at
Right.
the same time, that happened. We're gonna see. They're gonna have to get creative there. I think. I think there's part of the reason why Quincy Wiggins was maybe wearing the green dot. Maybe they have plans to utilize him a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, at edge, Wiggins is built like a Mack truck, but they got some good edge guys on this team. If that's a player that they see they can potentially move around a little bit, as opposed to moving from safety to linebacker, which I mean maybe be more natural, moving from outside to inside with a guy that big, that kind of size that Coach Prime clearly trusts enough. At least with the mental side of the game, we'll see if the
Mhm.
physical side can catch up this year and he can marry those two things together. But yeah, welcome Sean Myers. I don't
Yeah.
know what else to say on that one.
I will say, ironically, I'd feel better about this group if Trevor Woods was there. Wouldn't you?
Yeah, and that probably tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah, because I love Trevor Woods as a safety. I don't love him as a linebacker, but I'd feel better about that group if he was there.
Yep, no question.
So, yeah, yeah. Moving on, Tyrekus Davis, cornerback from Wyoming. This is one of those guys that gets the bonus year because he spent 3 years at a community college, Navarro Community College. One of those was the COVID year. Um, so but 12 game starter at Wyoming last year, second highest graded DB on the team as far as Pro Football Focus is concerned. 42 tackles, 8 PBUs, 5'10, 188. Seems like I mean, I like the addition. I don't know if he's a starter in that group, but I like the addition.
Yeah, I am intrigued. He's a shorter guy, which is surprising. Coach Prime
Yeah.
typically likes to get him some longer corners, but he has a
He's the
lot of
only one, as far as my list, he's the only one under 6 foot on
yeah,
the
he's got a
roster
lot
now.
of pass breakups if memory
Yeah.
serves. He's
Yeah.
contested a lot of passes, and he's from Wyoming, and Wyoming's making their trip down to Boulder this year, which I actually think is a good thing. Get a little
Yeah.
scout on them. Maybe that's overblown a little bit, but I think it's important to at least have a base of knowledge about maybe some of these guys because he did go through spring ball with them, so
Yeah.
he'll have a little bit of inside knowledge there.
Yeah.
He did
Yeah.
go
And
through spring ball with them, right?
I don't know for sure, but I would think so. I mean,
Okay,
he obviously came to the Buffs just a couple weeks ago, so I would
right.
imagine he did.
Okay.
Um, I like the addition. Again, I don't know if he starts. I still would project R.J. Johnson, DJ McKinney, and Preston Hodge.
Okay.
I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, so
Um,
would I as of right now. I mean, we'll see what ends up happening.
I like T.M. Parks, Ivan Yates has some experience, Makari Vickers. So, Noah King from K State has not played in college yet, but he was a 4-star recruit. So they got some talent there. Tyrekus Davis, I like that though. So solid addition. And then the last one, our other red flag position, Simeon Price. The
Yeah.
running back comes over from Coastal Carolina, spent his first 3 years at Mississippi State. Um, Big back, 6 foot, 215, but 44 carries, 136 yards, no touchdowns at Coastal last year, 3.1 yards a carry. Um, Not a guy that I look at and say, all right, running back's solid. Let's go. Running back's better.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what they're doing here. So, welcome Simeon Price.
Yeah.
Not sure what to say. That's about my expectations. I mean, at least they have a big body in the backfield because they didn't
Yeah.
at all. I don't know what happened there. I don't know. People are very upset when I bring up the fact that they have not had success in that running back room. I'm sorry. It is the truth. Your problem is not liking it. The fact of the matter here, Brian, is that they brought in a Hall of Famer as their running backs coach, and they didn't upgrade. In fact, they lost their lead back and then didn't
Yeah.
even really replace him. They got a gadget guy into Kalen Taylor, which I think looks interesting, and then they added Price. I don't know how to take seriously Coach Prime's words about really putting an emphasis on the running game following their actions here. I'm guessing it's in large part due to the fact that they have upgraded the offensive line and have changed some coaching. I hope that works for them. They're going to need huge years from Dallin Hayden and Micah Welch, and they're going to need healthy years.
Yeah.
Because if those two guys go down, it's Charlie Offerdahl and everybody, and a bunch of walk-ons, and now this Price kid. So
Yeah.
uh, maybe they know something we don't. I don't know how they could have ever. If you would have asked me before spring ball and then after spring ball, or excuse me, if you would have told me that this is where they would be at both of those junctures, I would have thought you were crazy.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to expect. I think they think that Caden Salter is just going to all of a sudden really open the offense up. I mean, that's got to be it. Caden Salter and the lineman they think is, look, they threw Shermer did and Marshall Falk did throw Shedeur under the bus for how he chose to run the offense last year because of his passing ability. I mean, that's the truth. We can go back and pull up the receipts. So if I'm just reading the tea leaves here, and that's what we're left to do, the writing on the wall tells me that they all think that Shedeur just refused to run the football, and now with a guy who's got that a part of his game, they're going to be doing it a lot more, so they don't really need a better back because they have an upgraded line.
Yeah. I don't know. I,
I'm trying to
yeah.
understand the lot. That's where I'm coming from. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
understand the logic here. I don't yet. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to figuring it out.
And
Figuring it out.
I don't know if Simeon Price can play. Maybe he's a good addition, but 4 years of college, he's never been able to really do the job. He hasn't. I don't know. In 4 years, you can say he's never had the opportunity. At
Yeah.
some point, if you're good enough, you make that opportunity. And so he's a guy. 4 years of college, he's got a little over 300 yards rushing. Nice depth piece. But I'll ask you this: three guys. There's five scholarship backs at the start of the spring. Five right now. Three of them are the same: Charlie Offerdahl, Dallin Hayden, Michael Welch. The two differences at the start of spring, you had Brandon Hood and Isaiah Augustive. Now you've got DeKalin Taylor, Simeon Price. Which group did you like better, or do
I
you like
mean,
better?
I just think Isaiah Augustive's the best player out of all of those guys.
Right.
So I
And
would,
I was high on Brandon Hood. Clearly
yeah,
they weren't, but
yeah.
um to
Unless
me,
Marshall Falk's like just this, generational talent developer, which maybe
right,
he is. He was a generational running back. I'm not going to
right.
put that, Coach Prime has revered him for his offensive mind. So, and at least definitely given him high praise for it. So I'm definitely open to those two guys taking a jump. But when we get to our segment, good plan, bad plan, whenever we get to that episode this summer of going through the position groups and determining not whether or not they're going to have success, whether or not the plan in place was a good one entering the season, it's undoubtedly a bad plan, right?
Yeah.
I mean, undoubted. Like I don't even think you
Well,
could make the argument.
I would say this that like you said, Marshall Falk, maybe he's a great coach, but I think it's okay to question because he has never coached. We've never seen it.
Yeah.
So there's no results to speak of at this point. Um, he was a fantastic player and a brilliant offensive
Oh my
mind.
God.
Magic Johnson was arguably the best point guard ever, and he couldn't
Right.
coach,
Right.
right? So it doesn't mean he can coach. He might be able to, but my questions right now are all the unknowns, and I think there's a bunch of unknowns. And I did an interview with DeKalin Taylor, awesome young man. I really enjoyed it. I think he's a nice addition. I love the addition, just not as that's not your lead back. I mean, this is a 5'7", 180 pounder that was telling me. I mean, he was a slot receiver. He was a slot receiver who didn't really get into the offense at Incarnate Word his first couple years. They had some injuries at running back and threw him back there to try it out. It worked. And had he not missed the last couple games with a hand injury, he would have topped 1,000 yards last year. So great year for him, but that's an Incarnate Word, and it's not power four
Yeah.
football.
Yeah.
Simeon Price has been a power four football player and hasn't done much. I will say this: Simeon Price comes in here with less of a tracker than Cavossier Smoke, who
God.
didn't get on the field 2 years ago, right?
God. I mean, you talk about so many young men have come through this
Right.
program the last couple of years. You just forget about some guys.
And so,
Yes.
look at the guys. I mean, Cavossier Smoke came in with, I think he had 1,500 yards rushing at Kentucky in his career
Yeah.
and couldn't see the field here. I mean, Dylan Edwards was a 4-star recruit who is now projected, I think, as Kansas State starting running back he didn't have a whole lot of production here. So until we see it, I think it's fine to question it. And I look at this plan and I agree with you. I'm like, to me, I look at it and say, boy, Dallin Hayden and Micah Welch better be a lot better than they were last year.
Yeah, and
Because those are the two guys you've got to rely on.
100%. And if Coach Prime sits there and tells us, no, this was the plan, this was always the plan. I mean, I don't think he would say that because what he cried to us before he lied to us it's been a while, so I'm trying to
Yeah.
remember the phrase. Is that it? So
Yeah.
I don't think he would say that. I think he would probably admit that maybe, things didn't go as expected. However, one conversation we should probably circle back on, they do have a couple of guys at the receiver position that due to numbers, they can put back there and give some touches to.
Yeah.
We did ask, or Pat Shermer, their offensive coordinator, was asked directly about Cam Michael, and he said no, he will be playing wide receiver for us.
Yeah.
At this stage, I wonder if that discussion changes with either Isaiah Harge or Cam Michael. It won't with Draylon Miller. Draylon Miller
Yeah.
is their number one receiver. Maybe he'll get a couple of touches.
You think?
Oh, I would put him easily, right? Until Omarion proves that he's healthy. I mean,
All right. That's fair.
you see that catch he made the other day in those player-led workouts on the sideline? That was nasty.
Yeah.
He's having a huge summer. I think he's poised to be their breakout player. If Salter
Right.
can get him the football, I think Draylon will have a huge season.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point is that whether or not he's one or two, he's still wide receiver. They're not going to
Right.
move him to running back full time.
But I
I could
think
see.
not full time, no.
No, that's all I was saying.
He's gonna be
Yeah,
back there, I think, at times.
sure. I mean, his versatility is part of the allure of a player like that,
Yeah.
right? I'm just talking about, can you really supplement the run game? If Isaiah Harge ends up getting beat out, every time Isaiah Harge has touched the ball in the backfield for CU in a real game, it's been very positive. I
Yeah.
think Isaiah's got some shifty to him that, that's a guy that maybe you look at for some touches. I'm not exactly sure, but I don't know that they have other options right now. Like before, I think Pat Shermer could afford to be a little picky. Now I think they're going to probably just have to throw some of those guys to the wolves and see, who rises to the top, because
Yeah.
at this stage I don't think they can be picky.
Yeah. I would agree with you. I would say those three guys, Cam, Draylon, and Isaiah Harge. I think they're going to get carries, but I think they're going to be
Gadget guys.
gadget guys. Of the three, I would say Isaiah Harge is the one that I would most likely put back there. I mean, we saw it at the spring game in
Yeah.
23, and he looked good. I know it's a
And
spring
he had a
game.
wildcat carry
Yeah.
late in the year against Utah or Oklahoma
Yeah.
State, one of the two. Yeah, I mean,
I would guess that's going to be, if they start getting hit with some injuries in the backfield, I could see an Isaiah Harge. But I will say, looking at all this right now, if I had to project the leading rusher for this team right now, I would say Caden Salter.
I think that's pretty safe to say.
So
Yeah.
I mean, I would pencil in Caden Salter for 500 to 600 yards. I don't see a 5 or 6. I don't see a 500 yard back
Yeah, neither do I.
on this
No,
team.
no. Maybe Hayden will be like, I would, if he's healthy,
Yeah,
maybe like 350.
yeah.
I'd put his over under at about 350.
I mean, I think there's potential there.
Until we see it,
Until
I
we see
can't
it,
say it.
I'm not going to put it past a guy like Dallin Hayden and Michael Welch. I love Michael Welch coming out of high school. I don't put it, and he's still a young player. I don't put
Yep.
it past those guys having a fantastic offseason, being dramatically better, but we haven't seen it. And so
Nope.
that's what you got to hope for. That's why you and I have a red flag on that running back room, is that, they're hoping guys play better than they've ever played before.
Yep.
And so that's what makes it tough. So anyway, those are the roster additions to this point. 78 scholarship guys, and I would guess maybe there's another addition or two at some point.
Maybe.
I mean, they've added guys even in August camp, so I would guess there's still going
That's
to
true.
be one or two. So we'll see. Real quick, one other thing before we get out of here. Like I mentioned, a couple of the preview magazines are out, Matt, and the Buffs, I guess, are probably where I would have thought a lot of people would have them. I thought when you look at last year's projections, okay, and I remember the Big 12 media poll comes out, right? And the Buffs were picked like 11th. But Travis was picked as the defensive player of the year in preseason. Shedeur, the offensive player of the year. I'm like, no, I think he was projected as the quarterback of the year, or first team quarterback. Like, okay, how do you have the best quarterback and the defensive player of the year and you're going to finish 11th? There's no way. But clearly, with that said, was that the media looked at Colorado last year is they've got 2 stars and nothing else.
Right.
And now I think the projections show right now
They
those
got
stars
nothing
are
else.
their stars are gone. And
Yeah. Yeah.
all right, because Lindy's magazine, which I picked up, projects CU 12th, and Athlon has them 10th. Um, I'm not surprised. I think when the Big 12 media poll comes out in a couple weeks, it's probably going to be a double-digit number. I would guess.
Yeah.
I wouldn't guess any higher than ninth.
No.
There's 16 teams in the league. They're going to be in the bottom half, and
Hmm.
I would guess they're going to
As
be
they should be.
somewhere 12 to 13. Um, there's potential to rise above that, I
Yeah.
think, but their projection is going to be right around there. So I'm not surprised by these early season projections.
Yeah, on paper, it's not an overwhelmingly impressive roster. It's
No,
just not. So
yeah,
you have a lot of unproven talent,
mhm,
which is exactly what you're saying. Like, there's
right.
potential to finish better than that and surpass those expectations. But there's a reason why Vegas has their over and under at 6.5, right?
Yeah,
There's a
is it
reason
that high?
for these. I think it is. Yeah, there's a reason for these numbers. Um, Sounds about right to me.
Yeah,
If you were to have me project everything out and I went through and sat down and did it, they'd probably end up between 10 and 12, I would guess.
yeah. And I have not done a deep dive yet on the league, so I couldn't do that yet. But they're
It is the Big 12 though. I mean, it's wet and wild, and I
yeah.
feel like this year, I mean, outside of Arizona State and maybe BYU, are there any real and Texas Tech, I guess, cuz all the money they spent.
So it's
Um,
interesting looking at the projection because I actually just thought of this, but this is Lindy's. They're number one and they're number 16 right now.
who? Tech?
No,
Oh,
I
I'm
haven't
sorry.
told
I'm
you yet.
sorry. I'm sorry.
Their number one team and their number 16 team, I think were flipped last year.
Is that right?
They project Arizona State to win the league, and they've
Yeah.
got Oklahoma State last.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
So, but to me, Oklahoma State's not going to be last in this league.
No, and not to mention the media got it way wrong because the Big 12 it like almost
Right.
flipped on its head. So,
Right. Well,
um
but I mean, I think that's going to happen a lot because in the
oh, for
transfer
sure.
portal era, I don't know how you project these things, and plus the magazines, they're coming out. I I wrote the CU portion of the Athlon, the of that preview magazine for several years. I didn't do it this year, but I had to turn it in before spring ball was over. I
Yeah.
remember 2 years ago, they're asking me, "Well, what are the uniform numbers?" I'm like, "I don't know." Remember that when they hadn't
Of
handed out
course.
uniform numbers yet?
Yeah, well, Brian, they
I'm
also these magazines get guys that aren't around at all. Athlon's the
Yeah,
same company
I
that
know. I know,
I'm just
but
saying.
I'm just saying in general, the preview magazine processes, these things are turned in April,
Oh yeah.
and it's like
It's very imperfect.
spring
Yeah.
ball's over. I'm like, hey, can I make this change? Like, yeah, sorry, we already got on the printer. And so,
Yeah.
half the guys I remember on my two deep that I turned in a couple of years ago weren't even on the team. And so it's hard to project, but yeah, Lindy's has ASU first, Texas Tech second, K State third, BYU fourth, Iowa State, Baylor, TCU, Kansas rounding out the top half of the league.
Interesting.
So
And Kansas, I didn't even mention Kansas. Jalen Daniels is coming back, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Finishing
too
in the
You notice I didn't mention Utah. Utah's not going to finish bottom half of the
no,
league.
no, no. But also, I mean, we just mentioned what a good 5, 6 teams there that I think pretty comp. I don't think it'll be last year. Maybe I'm
Right.
wrong on that one, but I think this year will be more predictable than
Easier to
last year.
project.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, than last year was because I think there
Yeah.
is a little bit more of a disparity between the top and the bottom of the league this year.
Yeah.
I
Lindy's
could be wrong.
the only team CU that Lindy's has below CU, UCF, West Virginia, Arizona, and Oklahoma State.
Without really looking at it, that sounds right. Those sound like the teams that I would put below CU if I were to do that.
Yeah. Well, Cincinnati, Houston. It's
Yeah, I
interesting.
guess. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not familiar enough with their rosters. I'm just saying like those teams and then maybe a couple of others, but I mean, I think Houston and Colorado will have a pretty similar play style. I think it's going to
Maybe.
be
Yeah.
try and hold you to as few as we can and then run the ball.
Yeah.
Because I think that'll be how it ends up working out. We'll
Yeah.
see.
It's
I do
interesting.
think they got a better quarterback though.
Yeah. And I mean, week 3, early conference matchup, you go down to Houston on a Friday night. And so
It'd be hot.
that'll be fun. But All right, Matt. Well, it's good to catch up. It's been a while.
Yeah, buddy.
We'll do this again soon, and it won't be a month, that's for sure.
No.
But we had a lot to catch up on, and yeah, it's been an interesting month for each of us, health wise and everything else. And so, hopefully we're better. Hopefully Coach Prime's better, and we'll all see each other in Boulder soon. I'm sure he misses us.
Oh God, I'm sure he's just dying to
Yeah,
see us.
yeah. Well, Matt, have a good rest of your week, or have
You
a good
too, pal.
weekend, and
Yes.
we'll talk to you soon.
Everybody, if we don't talk to you before July 4th, have a great July 4th. We love you.
And hey, real quick, if you're still around, don't forget, drop in the fastest speed you've ever hit in a car.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So you got to do that for us. So
You got to do
everybody have a
that.
great weekend. And Matt, we'll see you soon.
See ya.